Welcome to Saga Thing, where we're putting the sagas of the Icelanders on trial. I'm John.
And I'm Andy. In each episode, we pick a saga, offer a not-so-quick review of the plot and major themes, and then we judge its overall quality at the Saga Thing.
It has been a while, my friend.
It's good to be with you again. Now, I've been feeling a bit of saga withdrawal, honestly, these past few weeks.
Well, the little hiatus we took was desperately needed. But hey, we're fully refreshed and ready to jump into a new year of sagas.
Hey, we're fully refreshed. That may be a little bit strong, but I'd say that we're back and ready for action either way.
All right. Well, we're taking on a fairly obscure saga this time around, aren't we?
Well, obscure is a relative term. I'm sure it enjoyed a certain degree of popularity in its day. It wouldn't have been written otherwise.
Well, you could say about any saga. Although with this one, I'm not actually sure that's true.
Well, it's an interesting saga anyways. One of the more fun ones we've done, actually. I really like this.
Okay. Before you debate the saga's merits, why don't you hit the button and let the good people know a little something about it?
Ooh, so fast this time. Okay. In this saga, we follow our eponymous hero from his humble birth to an illustrious old age. Known for his feats of strength, your jaw will drop when he carries a fish, breaks the neck of a bull with his bare hands, fights bears, and wrestles one of the Blue Man group to the death. As a loyal servant of Earl Haukon, his adventures carry him all the way to the exotic Greek Isles, where he wins the favor of King John, who then gives him the clever nickname, The Strong. But like every good Icelandic hero, this strong man eventually returns home to seek a peaceful life and have a family. But a peaceful life isn't easy for a man with superhuman strength. And before he can gather his wits, Finnbogi's caught up in a series of feuds with local misfits and bullies. Along the way, you'll discover the truth behind Finnbogi's feud with that Vatnsdæla dullard Jokul Ingimundarsson, and watch him get the upper hand against his enemies time and again. This is a saga for saga lovers. It's the Saga of Finnbogi the Strong. Now, I'm very curious to find out what you think of this saga. I mean, neither one of us has read this one before, and we haven't had a chance to speak about it at all before now.
No, and this was my first time reading it, and I just finished it last week, so I haven't really had much to say about it before that. We haven't had a chance to talk since then.
That's right. Now, so because of that, you're getting some pretty fresh responses to Finnbogi Saga from us in this episode, and I imagine we'll both have a better sense of our feelings by the time we get to the judgments.
True. But I have a gut feeling that you quite like this one. Am I right?
Well, I would say that my first impression is favorable, of course. I actually read it a few times over the holidays, and each time I read it, I found it a little bit more charming. But I think that said, I'm not going to commit to praising or blaming the saga just yet, because, John, talking to you always helps me develop a more informed opinions on things.
Oh, you flatterer. Now, can I convince you that this is a bad saga?
Well, you can be persuasive, but in this case, I kind of doubt it. I mean, first of all, I didn't say that you actually form my opinions for me, though that would be nice. I just said that conversation is helpful. And second of all, I think that there's enough quality episodes here to rank this one higher than just a bad saga. It's pretty good.
I definitely agree. Although I do think that Finnbogi Saga remains obscure for a reason. I mean, it lacks a degree of originality. The episodes tend to be fun, but we've seen most of them before, either the literal stories or at least the thematic components in other sagas.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know what you're getting at there, but I don't know that that's a fair judgment.
Really? Yeah. You're gonna argue that this is an original saga?
No, I'm definitely not arguing that. We'll see where it's not. But you're right that a lot of what happens in Finnbogi Saga is derivative, but being derivative doesn't determine quality of a saga, I don't think.
Well, I think it's a factor.
It is a factor, but you and I both know that most of medieval lit, and Renaissance lit for that matter, and everything that's written today, is derivative. It's always adapting, building on, and working with literary traditions that precede it. So,
absolutely.
And also, I don't think you should forget that Grettir's Saga is basically a late composition celebrating Saga Lit's greatest hits. And you loved that one, and you can't get more derivative than Grettir's Saga.
You've jumped ship on me now. We're talking about Grettir's Saga. You can absolutely get more derivative than Grettir's Saga. This saga, for example. Just look at Finnbogi's Saga.
Now, did I say a second ago that talking to you inspires me? I think I meant exhausts. You exhaust me, John.
Listen, we've been away for a while. It's my job to get you back into shape by challenging you on everything.
No, it's not.
It is, actually.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's... No. All right. Let's not do that. Let's just shift the focus a bit here so we can get something done.
Fine. Would you like to know what the Hrafnkel measurement for Finnbogi Saga is?
Oh boy, would I?
I thought you might.
Mm-hmm.
You want to venture a guess before I tell you?
Well, I legitimately sat down and thought about this for some reason.
You have a lot of free time.
Yeah, well, Finnbogi Saga is about 40 or so chapters long.
43, yeah.
That's right. So, okay, 43, but that doesn't mean much because chapters are different lengths. So, I'm going to have to guess on a vague memory of how long Hrafnkel's Saga is. And...
Oh, I can give you a hint on that one.
Yeah?
It's exactly one Hrafnkel long.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to guess that Finnbogi Saga is about 3 Hrafnkels long, maybe 3.3. I'm going to go a little bit higher because I feel like it might be just slightly more than 3.
Well, apparently you didn't enjoy the saga as much as you thought you did because it felt too long to you. It weighs in at a muscular 2.6 Hrafnkel.
2.6? That's close to 3. I think I should get some credit there.
It's not very close to 3.3.
Well, I hedged and moved that direction, but I said 3 at the beginning.
That's 0.7. That's an entire Greenlanders Saga difference.
No. I want credit for my 3, not my 3.3.
I see.
All right. Now, as we've said before, this is one of the lesser known sagas. Part of the reason for that, I think, is because it's considered fairly late, with a rough date of composition in the early 14th century.
Now, I'm actually surprised that the late date is offered as a reason. Many of the best sagas are in that same category, right? That sort of late era. Mm-hmm. Think about this. Njal's Saga, Grettir's Saga, Vigeland's Saga, right, are all later sagas from the early 14th century. It's easy to lose Vigeland and Finnbogi, though, in those shadows cast by Njal and Grettir.
That is, but I think we showed why Vigeland's Saga is such an interesting text and worthy of further study when we did that one. So maybe we can do the same for Finnbogi.
I'm not sure I feel confident about that, but maybe. But this might be one where I agree with the relative silence on the saga.
Really?
Well, maybe. Did you do any research on Finnbogi while preparing for the episode?
Of course I did. I always do. You know that.
Uh-huh.
Come on.
And what did you find?
I didn't find much, actually.
Exactly.
I did get a quote from Paul Schock, who points out that Finnbogi Saga uses more colloquial language than other sagas, which is kind of interesting. That one gives us a glimpse into the conversational language of the early 14th century, so that's quite fascinating.
But there's not much else out there.
No, but I did find a few quotes that kind of insult the saga a bit, so you might like those.
No. You misunderstand. I'm not arguing that it's a terrible saga.
Okay.
It's just not going to be a critical darling.
Ah, that's fair.
But do share those with me.
Okay, well, this first one is from the entry for Finnbogi Saga in Medieval Scandinavia and Encyclopedia, which you can access on Google Books, or at least parts of it. This one says, "The Saga of Finnbogi the Mighty is not one of the better crafted Icelandic saga. Characterization is flat, and the plot is little more than a repetitious series of episodes designed to present the hero in a favorable light."
Now, that's harsh, but I would say eminently fair as a criticism.
Well, it is, but the paragraph concludes with a quick compliment. "The narrative is nevertheless lively and makes good reading." And I do agree with that.
Well, no, I agree with that as well. I think that's quite a fair assessment overall.
All right. Then I found this next one in a 1992 review of Bachman and Ellingson's translation. That's the green one with the gold lettering on the front, if you've read this one. It says, "One of the least studied of the Icelandic saga, Finnboga Saga Rama, has tended to be dismissed as a late, unhistorical work, unduly influenced by folktales and the Fornaldar saga."
Wait, unduly influenced? What does that even mean? Influence is influence.
I don't know. Could a saga be duly influenced by folktales?
We'll have to find one that is.
Yeah. Oh, and do you know who wrote that, John?
Who?
John Kennedy.
Really? Mm-hmm. In 1992, you say?
Yep, that's the one.
That's good for him. I'm glad he's staying busy.
Now, I've got one more note, just to be clear, that wasn't John F. Kennedy. It's another guy named John Kennedy.
Yes, understood.
I've got one.
JFK Jr.
No, it's not him either. It's a different one. Anyway, I've got one more note, but I can't remember where it came from, so...
You're supposed to write those things down.
I know, but I was researching at the kitchen table at my in-laws' house just after Christmas, so forgive me for my lack of diligence. Anyways, this one is more complimentary. Now, I've only got a paraphrase here, but it says that...
Wait.
What?
I'm not even sure this is admissible. You're paraphrasing a source that you can't identify? It's like if one of my students turned this in a paper, I'd reject it.
Well, that's fair, but this is just us chatting, so it's all right. Anyway, this one says that the style of this saga is lucid but more colloquial than that of most of the Icelandic Saga, and the aims of the author were clearly entertainment and the literary rehabilitation of Finnbogi. Wait a minute, John.
Mm-hmm.
I know where this came from. This is Paul Schock. It's what we started with.
Yeah, so we've come full circle.
Yes,
right back to where we started.
It is. I must have written this one down twice, only more completely the second time around, because it sounded a little bit more professional. Oh, well. What are you going to do?
It's a compliment to Schock. You really liked him.
I thought it was great.
Now, let that be a lesson to everyone out there that taking good notes involves a certain degree of attention and accuracy.
Indeed it does. Sorry about that. Now, the only other thing that I found was an article all about the connections between Finnbogi Saga and Vatnsdæla Saga.
Right. Well, and I think most people who read Finnbogi Saga inevitably come to it for exactly those reasons, or realize very quickly that what they're getting is the other half of the Vatnsdæla story.
Right.
Now, our listeners will hopefully remember that we've encountered Finnbogi before.
We sure have.
Now, if you go back to our Vatnsdæla Saga episode, you'll find that Finnbogi was one of the antagonists.
Wait, now, why can't he just be a character?
Well, because he was trying to humiliate the Ingimundarssons and then challenged Jokul and Thorstein to a duel. That's pretty antagonistic.
Perhaps.
And you might also recall that Finnbogi fails to show up for that duel.
He does, but in his defense, the weather was pretty bad. I can't blame him for that.
I didn't hear you defending Finnbogi back when we recorded Vatnsdæla Saga. We nearly outlawed him.
This is because I didn't really know Finnbogi yet. There are two sides to every story, and Vatnsdæla Saga really presents a biased perspective, I think. Finnbogi actually comes off pretty well in the Saga of Finnbogi the Strong.
Right. Right, and the saga named after him, which is not biased at all.
Oh, it's biased. I mean, it's so biased, in fact, that most scholars who've commented on the saga suggest the whole thing was written just to counter the narrative in Vatnsdæla Saga and maybe recover a little bit of Finnbogi's character.
And by the way, to commit character assassination on one of the Ingimundarssons.
Oh, poor Jokul. Anyway, we're going to have to, that conversation's going to come up in the second part or third part of our summary.
Second part.
Second part, maybe. When we get to the conflict with Jokul and the Ingimundarssons.
Great. Well, there's some fascinating stuff there, and I think we'll have a lot to say about how these two sagas handle the same story. Right? We've just been dealing with this with Greenlander and Eric the Red.
That's right.
For now, however, I think it's high time we start to make our way through the first part of Finnbogi's saga.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Section 1. An ignoble birth. Now, like most sagas, this one begins with a genealogy of relevant characters.
Now, do you want to go through them all? There's quite a few there.
I don't think we need to do that for this one. But we can at least highlight a few of the more important figures for the first part of the saga.
Okay, then I'll start with these. The first person that we need to know is Asbjorn Detias, whose nickname Detias means something like falling beam or something.
That's my job.
Oh, sorry. I mean, you can tell the story of that if you want in the judgment section.
Well, I have some idea, but I need to look into that story.
A beam fell down.
Yes, well.
Anyway, you've got plenty of time to figure that out. Asbjorn is a strong man with a reputation for being somewhat proud and a little bit difficult. He was originally from Hålogaland in Norway, but he then emigrated to Iceland and settled in the Flateyjardal region, where he holds the Goðurth, or the chieftaincy.
Now, he's married to Thorgerd, who is the sister of Thorgir, the Goði of Losvatn. Now, this guy is pretty important for a variety of reasons. As far as this saga is concerned, he's the leading figure in the region and the go-to guy for advice. Outside of this saga, he's known for his role in Iceland's conversion to Christianity, but that's another story.
And I have no doubt that we will speak about him more in the judgment section.
Oh, I think so. Do I sense an early candidate for Thingman here?
Maybe. There are a lot of good ones in here, but I definitely like Thorgeir better than Asbjorn.
Well, yes.
But you were trying to tell us about Asbjorn's wife, Thorgerd.
That's right. But there's not really a lot else to say. She's beautiful and a bit stubborn. That's about all we learn about her right now, really.
What a woman.
Well, we can move along to Thorgerd and Asbjorn's lovely daughter, Thorny.
Thorny. Now, there's a name. Now, that's much more straightforward than Briar Rose or something like that. You know what you're getting with Thorny, don't you?
I don't think that's how the name works.
Oh, okay. It does for me.
Now, Thorny isn't going to be around for long.
No, she doesn't die or anything. She's just going to move off stage very quickly in Act 1 here and never come back, I don't think.
Right, but a lot of the later action kind of indirectly revolves around her. So the saga is actually set in motion by her love affair with a Norwegian called Skithy. Now, she wants to marry this guy, but her father doesn't like the match.
That makes sense. I mean, look at Asbjorn's own marriage. He tied himself to Thorgeir of Ljósvatn through marriage and expanded his influence significantly through that. I doubt love played a significant role in his decision to wed Thorgeir.
Oh, you cynic.
Oh, so who is this Skithy and what does he bring to the table? That's the question that has to be asked.
He's actually not a bad match. The saga does tell us that he's from a noble family in Norway, but Asbjorn is still angry about it all.
Why? I mean, because Skithy doesn't have anything to offer in Iceland, I guess. His Norwegian ties are pretty good, but maybe Asbjorn's thinking it doesn't help him within Iceland itself.
I think that is possible. But he could also just be mad because they fell in love and he didn't get to do the arranging.
That sounds like a father in the Icelandic sagas.
Anyway, Thorgerd is a bit more tender-hearted, and she helps the two lovers elope one summer when Asbjorn is away at the Thing. Skithy takes Thorny back to Norway with him and weds her there.
Now, I don't imagine that Asbjorn was very happy when he got home from that thing.
No. He is furious with Thorgerd for allowing the Norwegian to take Thorny away. I'm so glad that we're going to be able to stop saying her name.
I'm not a fan.
It's a hard name to take seriously.
Well, Asbjorn is the kind of guy who holds a grudge pretty well.
He sure is, yeah.
Yeah. So he gets back at Thorgerd a few seasons later when Thorgerd becomes pregnant with their second child. And as he's preparing to leave for the Thing, he looks at her and says, I know that you're expecting a baby and that your pregnancy is well advanced. Now, whatever this child is, it's not to be reared. You must expose this child to the elements.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems incredibly unreasonable to Thorgerd, who reminds Asbjorn that he is a wealthy and wise man. She says, that would be an outrageous course of action if a poor man took it. But it is particularly so for you, since you are perfectly capable of providing for this child.
What is that voice? It sounds like a mad old woman.
What?
I just like that voice. I don't know why.
I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
I don't know that that's a young woman, that's pregnant. But
hey, she already has an adult daughter.
That's true. She does. Maybe she's getting up there. Not too far, though. This scene actually comes up in scholarship about exposing children quite often, since it's one of the few references in the literature to discuss this kind of thing. So, we've seen exposures in the past, though. There's usually some kind of rationale, if we can call it that, offered for the abandonment of a newborn child.
Right. Now, remember that Helga the Fair from Gunnlaug's saga was exposed as an infant.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely forgot about that one. That's a good one.
Well, I'm just trying to avoid mentioning your thing man again.
Just you wait.
She was put out because of her father's dream, right? If you remember, he believed that his future daughter would cause the death of two men.
Exactly, and he had that dream about the two birds, right? The birds, whatever. But I don't think she's ever actually exposed. Her mother makes arrangements for her to be raised elsewhere, I think, before the exposure happens.
Right, but it's interesting that because of the prophecy about her, that Helga's father says the baby should only be exposed if it's a girl and kept if it's a boy.
Well, I mean, if it's a boy, then the baby isn't the one in the prophecy, so I guess that one's safe to keep.
Right. And, all right, I'll go for it. You remember Thorkel Scratcher.
Scratcher.
Ugh. He was the illegitimate son of Thorgrim of Karnsa and his mistress, and that didn't please Thorgrim's wife, understandably. No. So she had the baby exposed to punish Thorgrim.
Now, that's actually closer to this situation. Asbjorn explains that he wants Thorgerd to expose the baby regardless of its sex because he was so heartbroken by the loss of Thorny. And he says, when you gave our daughter Thorny to that Norwegian without my knowledge, I resolved that I would not raise any more children so that you could then give them away without my approval.
Right, he essentially threatens her, saying she'd better expose that baby or else.
To the moon, Thorgerd! To the moon!
Jesus.
That's a modern reference.
Yes, it is. Actually, no, it isn't. It's a very dated, slightly disturbing reference.
Modern in the grand scheme of things, if you're looking at the course of human history.
Anyway, Thorgerd has the baby not long afterwards, and it's a healthy and very handsome baby boy.
No, he's not just healthy and handsome. He's a remarkable child. Exceptional. Everyone who sees him is blown away by just how amazing this kid is.
Yeah, this is just the beginning of the heaps of unearned praise the author is going to pile on this kid. He's just so awesome. And it gets kind of exhausting after a while.
Well, that's just your opinion.
Yes, it is. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Now, because she fears her husband, Thorgerd arranges for a couple of servants to abandon the boy. They carry him far away from the farmstead and lay him down between two boulders with a large stone slab pulled over him. And then they put a piece of meat in his mouth and walk away. Mm-hmm. It's kind of awful.
Well, it is. I mean, historically, certainly it is. But in this case, we know it's not that awful because he's going to survive. Mm-hmm. I mean, there really aren't often exposed children in these stories that don't get rescued because obviously they wouldn't then be the subject of a story.
That's a fair point. I mean, I guess you'll have to forgive me for letting my humanity creep in there for a moment. Now, I do have a quick question for you about this part of the text. I don't know if you have an answer, so feel free to say, I don't know if you don't know.
Oh, I always know.
So why...
I shouldn't say that until I hear the question.
Yeah. Why do they put a hunk of meat in his mouth? Oh. I would consider that a choking hazard.
I mean, I suppose it could be, but if you're exposing the kid, you're not necessarily concerned about keeping his airway clear.
Right. Maybe it's there to choke him.
No, I actually have an idea about this, but it's kind of grim.
All right.
Do you want to hear it?
I do want to hear. I asked you, so tell me.
If you're trying to expose a child, right? Up till now, remember, what we've been seeing is people who don't actually want to expose the child, right? It's always people who are planning to have the kid rescued somehow, or who are secretly hoping the kid will be rescued somehow.
Sure.
We never get any indication that Thorgerd actually expects this kid to be rescued. Right? She's legitimately exposing him. Mm-hmm. The hunk of meat in his mouth, I think the concern would be that the child crying would be too much to take, right? The child screaming would be too difficult. Mm-hmm. And so a piece of meat in his mouth keeps him from getting hungry and crying until something comes along and kills him.
Oh, lovely.
Or until the elements simply freeze him.
Sure.
Right? Because
I was wondering if it was meant to be nourishment for him for a period, but I don't
know
how
what would be the point
a baby...
of nourishing a child you're exposing.
Well, yeah, it's a weird idea.
Right.
But that seems like what you're saying is keeping him calm until a bird comes by.
I mean, it's equal parts kind of a gentle act and a really, really cold-blooded one.
Yeah. It's crazy. All right. Well, thanks for that. You really uplifted my spirits.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. I hope he's okay.
So the boy is born. Let's find out what kind of a kid he is in the next section. Section 2. Erdicott. Erdicott?
Erdicott. And now, as you said in the previous section, these exposed babies are always found, and this case isn't any different. The saga turns now to Sirpa and Gest, a poor couple who live nearby on a farm called Toftir.
Right. Now, Sirpa is actually Thorgerd's foster mother. It's sort of convenient, really.
Yeah, and that actually confuses me because I'm not sure why the sister of a wealthy and respected man like Thorgerd of Ljósvatn would have been fostered by a poor and ugly woman like Sirpa. No offense, Sirpa.
Well, I mean, let's not forget that she wasn't so poor at first. Right? Thorgerd had brought her to Flaterdal when she married Asbjorn because she couldn't bear to be too far from her foster mother. Mm-hmm. But Asbjorn thought that Sirpa was the ugliest creature he'd ever seen, and he didn't like having her around Thorgerd.
That's right. So he sent her away.
Right, with no money or anything,
right.
Which is how she ends up marrying Gest, who's kind of useless. It's a lovely story.
Asbjorn's coming off rather poorly in this saga.
He really is. He is unquestionably a jerk, but all of this is designed to set up a rags to riches story.
That's right, it is. So, you can't have him just be growing up riches to riches. It's boring, so.
Right. So you have to have your riches to rags story first.
Yeah. So on the same day that Thorgerd gives birth and this baby is exposed, Sirpa sends Gest out to look for some moss she needed for some kind of craft project. And he hears the baby crying, finds him, and then brings him home to Sirpa.
Right. Now, I mean, Sirpa, unsurprisingly, suspects that this might be Thorgerd's baby.
Smart girl.
Right. I mean, there can't, the countryside isn't just littered with babies sucking on hunks of meat while they wait to die. So she thinks quickly, tells guests to get a large blanket and spread it out in the main room. She's got a cunning plan.
Oh.
They're going to pretend to give birth to the baby and claim it as their own.
Now, that's a crazy plan. And guest knows it's crazy. I mean, no one's going to believe this is our kid, he says to her, because this child is far too good looking to bear any resemblance to either of us. I love his humility here.
Right. No, I actually really like that they're kind of signposting this, because this is something that we've seen before. If you remember, we see it as a folkloric element in the kind of more Fornalda Saga-y kind of sagas, like Ragnar's Saga, where, if you remember, this is his second wife, Aslog. Her background is the same way. She's fostered by an ugly couple who have murdered her protector.
That's right.
And we have the same story where somebody says, well, she's beautiful, but her parents are hideous. And
well, don't they rub stuff all over her face to make her ugly?
Right. They're like smearing dung on her face or what have you.
Right.
And calling her ugly crow.
Yeah, and these guys do the same exact thing. They dress him in rags and stuff like that. Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because, Sirpa is going to have this baby whether it's plausible or not. She tells guests to run over to Thorgerd's farmstead and ask for all the baby supplies they've got.
Now, I mean, shouldn't all of this be quite clear to everyone in the region, but especially at these two farms? I mean, they could put two and two together immediately. They know that Thorgerd and Sirpa are close. They know that Thorgerd was pregnant, and they know that Thorgerd exposed the baby. Where do they think this little guy came from?
Well, there's hardly any mystery to it. I mean, the Saga stork comes along and delivers his Saga baby.
No, there's no mystery to this. It's very, very obvious. The news does travel around that Asbjorn and Thorgerd exposed their newborn son, and this brings great shame on the house since everyone considered it a terrible thing to do, especially for a man of Asbjorn's standing. So all of this suggests that people actually believed that Thorgerd's baby was truly gone.
Right, and in the same paragraph, the author notes that everyone also learned about the birth of Sirpa's baby and wondered how it was possible given her advanced age.
Right.
So people may not be bright, but they are suspicious.
But somehow they just can't figure it out, can they?
Well, I think we're in the realm of folklore here, right? This is one of those folktale motifs that you're just meant to accept. No one's supposed to put these things together until it becomes sort of narratively convenient for them to do so.
Right. Now, the saga at this point jumps forward a bit as the baby grows into a young boy.
Oh, we're not going to get any of the exploits of this amazing baby?
Sadly, no, we don't. But you should feel free, John, to go back and maybe fill in those blanks in some prequels to the saga if you want to.
Oh, God.
In the meantime, Sirpa and Guest do an exceptional job of raising the baby. Now, I know you'll talk about this in the nickname section of the judgments, but they decide to name the kid Urdakot, which means scree cat, because Guest found him in a scree of a mountain.
Right. Now, he's called Wildcat in the Bachman and Erlingson translation, but scree cat is a bit better, I think, because it sort of matches the translation.
Yeah, either way, it's not a good name. I mean, I really don't like saying scree cat. I didn't like reading it, so I'm going to stick with Urdakot.
Right, which is what the Sagas of Icelanders, the complete collection does.
That's what they
I'm not sure that's any better, by the way.
No, but I mean, what am I going to do? I'm stuck with the name they gave him, so...
Right. So anyway, Urdakot grows up quickly, and he's a very healthy, robust, and handsome boy, in case you didn't figure that out yet.
Right. I mean, the saga then tells us that at the age of 3, he's as big as most 6-year-olds. And when he's 6, he looks like most 12-year-olds.
And presumably when he's 12, he looks like most 24-year-olds.
Yeah.
I see the pattern here. It doesn't bode well for him when he gets to be about 30.
Well, because he's so robust, these rumors, then they continue to circulate about his parentage. And people are saying there's just simply no way that Sirpa and Guest could create such a remarkable specimen of virile manhood.
Right. So it can be kind of hard to know what's supposed to be so great about this kid. I mean, you read this part of the saga over, and it's very clear this kid is just a pain in the rear. And now, obviously, in the sagas, it's not necessarily going to mean that you can't be a great figure. Think of Grettir again. Urðarkot likes to visit Thorgerd's farm and just cause all kinds of trouble. Is this beautiful boy the same one who likes to hit the servant women and trip them with his stick?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's quite proud and a bit troublesome, but he's not all bad. I mean, Thorgerd likes having him around for obvious reasons, and he couldn't be more loving and caring with Sorpa and guests. And as you know, the whole first part of the saga, basically the part we're covering for this part of the summary episode, it's devoted to cataloging Urðarkot's amazing feats of strength. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, no, the list of his accomplishments is borderline embarrassing.
In terms of how impressive they are.
No, in terms of how ridiculously shameless the author is in building up his hero.
Oh, come on. You know the sagas love amazing displays of strength. And in fact, your Thingman Grettir is renowned for lifting giant boulders just to show that he can do it.
It's true, but Grettir's saga isn't just a series of episodes where Grettir lifts something heavy.
No, it's a series of episodes featuring Grettir's prowess at swimming and lifting and wrestling and killing. I don't see much difference, actually, between the depiction of Grettir's youth and Urðarkot's. They follow the same basic path and accomplish many of the same feats.
No, it's a legitimate point. There isn't a lot of reason to like young Urðarkot, and admittedly, young Grettir can be hard to love.
I guess the only real difference is that Urðarkot doesn't go around skinning live horses and killing people that are nice to him and setting buildings on fire that are full of men. So.
Oh, that's a low blow and a complete misrepresentation of Grettir's youth.
Really? Is it a misrepresentation or just an accurate account of what I would call a troublesome youth for young Grettir?
That building burning was an accident, and you admitted as much in the journal section.
The building burning is fair. But
even if Grettir's not terribly likable, at least he feels like a well-rounded character.
Yeah.
My main complaint about Urðarkot is that he smacks of the folktale. He's so damn perfect and successful. He's the best at everything he does. And eventually it becomes a little bit one-dimensional and annoying.
That's fair, and that's what the critique that we read earlier says. They're flat characters. Now, at the same time, I wonder if there are some deep-seated personal issues underlying your frustrations with the character of this perfective magnitude.
Yeah, I'm really more the Daniel San than the Billy Zagbo in my own life.
That's right.
But tell us more about Urðarkot's amazing feats of strength already.
All right. Well, let's start with this one from when he was about 6 years old. This one reads like something out of a tall tale. It's full of exaggerations and impossibilities, which I guess might be part of what can bother some readers. But it is in keeping with the folk fairy tale feeling of the saga's first chapters.
Section 3: Urðarkot and the Fish.
Now, we're told in Chapter 4 that Urðarkot likes to go down to the beach and hang out with the fishermen, as many young boys might do.
Sure.
He gets along well with them, and they often have fun goofing around and joking together. But one day, Urðarkot goes down to the shore and catches the fishermen unloading the day's catch from their boats. And as a joke, they toss a huge fish at Urðarkot's feet and ask him to carry it up on shore for them. This fish is about 4 ells long, which I assume is pretty big. So I looked up an ell and I determined that it's probably about 15 feet long, which means this fish is like the size of a large tiger shark or a small whale.
Hang on. An ell is a unit of measure that means different things in different cultures. Right? Yeah. So 4 ells can be anywhere from like 5 feet up to, as you say, like 15 feet.
Yeah.
Depending on the
internet.
culture.
I just want to make this clear. I used an internet calculator. So I'm pretty sure I'm accurate.
So you're looking at a modern ell then. Right? But we're looking at a text from the 14th century.
They didn't have the internet?
So, an English ell would be like 5/4 of a yard is usually how it's written. Right? So that ends up being 45 inches. So that's a long chunk of cloth.
It's
a Danish ell, but it's usually used to measure cloth.
Sure it is.
A Danish ell would be about 25 inches. But in this case, I'm going to assume that we're looking at what we call a Viking ell or a Norse ell.
Oh, yes.
Which would be about 18 inches and would be the measurement from a man's elbow to the tip of his middle finger. And don't think I can't see you giving me the tip of your middle finger right now. So. The point is, we're probably looking at something more like 6 feet, for the fish, or a little under 2 meters.
That's kind of disappointing, to be honest with you.
Still a pretty big fish to throw to a 6-year-old.
I guess.
I doubt either one of us could budge the thing very far. Well, might be able to lift it.
I'm not sure how. Budge it.
Well, is it dead? Because if it's alive,
no, I think it's dead. But either way, we're not fit adult males, so I don't think we do very well either way.
No. Well, we are adult males. I just wouldn't want to make bank on our fitness.
Exactly.
Particularly our fitness to carry large fish.
Now, Erdikot says that he is actually up to the challenge, which shames me quite a bit. But he'd like to keep the fish if he manages to pull it up on shore. The men obviously don't think that this little boy can do it, so they agree. They say, go ahead.
But anyone who knows anything about folktales knows that this fish is going up the beach with Erdikot.
Mm-hmm.
And he does manage to pull it up, but not without some difficulty, which I have to admit is a nice touch. I'd be annoyed if he just hoisted the fish over his shoulder and strolled on up the beach with a nod and a wink.
I wouldn't be bothered by that. That's a really funny image, especially if you give him a little top hat. But I do like that this task takes Erdikot a while to accomplish. He exhausts himself by yanking on this fish, and sometimes he's able to move it an inch or so, and sometimes he struggles to move it at all.
Right. And even though the men are laughing at him, Erdikot just keeps pulling. And in the end, he manages to get the fish on the shore, which is fairly impressive. I mean, remember, we're talking about a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a son who's about to be 6, and I think he'd struggled just opening a can of tuna. So this is definitely a marker of Erdikot's potential as a man.
Well, or of the defective nature of the genes you've passed on.
Well, my poor son.
Oh, I'm sure he could open a can of fish.
No, I don't think he can, but he is brilliant in his own way.
There you go. But Erdikot's not a man yet.
No.
As impressive as this display was, the fishermen aren't eager to give up a giant fish to Erdikot. In fact, they actually rush up and take the fish back from him.
Poor kid.
Breaking their agreement. They didn't actually mean to give it to him. They were just messing with it.
That is shameful. I mean, I'm sure Grettir or Ale would have found a way after this to kill one or two of those fishermen.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But this saga author doesn't want to taint the pristine reputation of his golden boy. Instead, Erdikot sought the help of some friendly neighbors, the Brettings. They have some political influence in the region.
Yeah, and we only know about the Brettings' political influence because they're mentioned in that first chapter genealogy, and this is actually, I think, the only role that they play, and maybe they come back later, but I can't remember.
They show up again a little bit later. Yeah.
There you go. So I'm guessing that you think his call to some family friends is maybe a weak move.
Well, it's another example of what I've been calling the fairy tale quality of this saga. Erdikot is just a little too good, a little too perfect to ring true. But in the end, he does get to keep the fish because the Brettings come down and force the fishermen to turn it over. So the story ends well for him.
Right, but no one agreed to help him get the fish home, so the fishermen are pretty ticked at him now, and they decide to just walk away and leave him to drag the fish all the way back by himself.
Right, and there's a nice little moment in there where it says that his foster parents were extremely pleased with his efforts. I like that part.
Now, is that your sentimental side coming out, John?
Well, no. I mean, I do like a kid who works hard to support his parents. I'm looking forward to my own doing that someday.
Right. But come on, kids.
That's right.
I need you.
But I'm more impressed by the author's effort to highlight the extreme poverty that Erdikot's been growing up in. Right? A big fish makes a huge difference to these people.
Sure does.
He reminds us on several occasions that Serpa and guests live a difficult life. And earlier in the chapter, we even get this description of Erdikot's clothes.
That's right. He's wearing these rags, right?
Yeah, which are now, of course, fish-smelling rags. He's got a skin cloak, tattered trousers, a homespun trousers, and no shoes.
Now, that is a significant contrast with what he could be wearing if he lived with his real parents, Thorgerd and Asbjorn, who are quite well off.
Right. And the author wants us to be aware of that. So he includes these quick descriptions in the early chapters to make sure we don't forget. Right? It's this kind of Cinderella quality. In this case, the food he's bringing home to Serpa is such a huge bounty. I mean, this is, for a family that's struggling to get by. And I appreciate that the saga author doesn't actually say that. He just lets the scene speak for itself.
Nicely put. Now, it's not surprising that news of Erdikot's accomplishments spread throughout the region. And as time goes on, his reputation grows because of this.
That is a region without a lot going on. It's a slow news day for the region. Hey, did you hear about a kid who carried a fish?
Well, it's either that or just, carcasses washing up on the shore. So there's not much going on. The more it grows, the more people wonder whether he's really the son of Serpa and Guest. And that is the subject of a lot of gossip for several years.
Dim lights go on over the heads of the people of the region one by one, until one fine day when Thorgir the Gothi spoils the whole thing.
Things don't turn out bad for everyone. Come on.
No, not really. But Thorgir, who is actually, remember, Erdekot's uncle, is an intelligent guy. And he can spot a ruse when he sees one.
Okay, now tell everyone what Erdekot was doing before Thorgir revealed the truth of his birth.
I'm not sure I remember.
How could you forget this? He was wrestling with 4 servant women during a feast.
Oh, God, that's right. Yeah, they're rolling all over the house and causing a ruckus.
This boy and 4 servant women. I mean, that might be one of my favorite images from the sagas that we've covered. I mean, it's right up there with Glaum riding the rooftops. This little boy and these women rolling all over the place.
Right. No, it is pretty funny to imagine, especially because the servant women aren't really willing participants in these fights.
Oh, no, I don't know. I think they're willing. I mean, he's constantly picking on them. Remember, he likes to trip them with his stick and stuff. So it's probably a great opportunity to get some shots in for them.
Yeah, except he's incredibly strong. Erdekot is 12 years old now, which in human years is 24.
That is pretty scary now that you mention it.
Anyway, Erdekot has no trouble defeating the 4 women, but it attracts the attention of Thorgir. And when Thorgir asks Asbjorn who the boy's parents are, he laughs when he's told that Gest and Serpa sired the boy.
And he says that he doesn't believe it because Erdekot is bigger and abler than any chieftain's son that he's ever seen.
Right, which means for a saga that he can't possibly be a poor man's child.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In the sagas, a person's outward appearance and bearing often reveals a lot about what's on the inside. And this is a great example of that.
Yeah, and so with a little bit of manipulation and some promises not to hurt anyone, Thorgir manages to get Erdekot to fetch his foster parents from his home and bring them back for a short interrogation.
Well, I think that's putting it a bit harshly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of what's happening. I mean, it's true. In the end, Serpa admits that they found the boy as a baby hidden under a rock on the side of a mountain. Thorgir immediately recalls, of course, that Thorgerd had been pregnant around that time.
Which is pretty remarkable. I mean, how does he remember that?
Hey, he's a smart chieftain. He knows things.
He was far away. Thorgerd...
But remember, it was the talk of the area at the time. Everyone was sort of shocked by this act and felt shame for Asbjorn and Thorgerd.
So, yeah, I guess it must have spread outside the district.
Well, if they can't stop talking about a kid carrying a fish, it doesn't take much to get the gossip mill going in these parts.
It was a big fish. Anyway, so Thorgerd then admits that she did expose the child, but she explains that she did it because she was afraid of her husband. It's kind of a sad scene, actually. She's revealing for the first time this terrible deed, and she's trying to explain that she would happily have kept and raised the boy if her husband wasn't such a terrible and violent man.
Right, no, I think the shame is clearly on Asbjorn for being so harsh. And I have to say, Thorgir is more than happy to call him out for it.
And deservedly so. But remember that Asbjorn still doesn't acknowledge Erdekot as his own. He just says, I don't know whose son he is, but I can give him food like other people if that's what you want.
True. But Thorgir is no pushover. He tells Asbjorn he'll stop being friends with him if he doesn't acknowledge Erdekot as his son, and rewards Serpa and Gest with a small fortune for caring for the boy.
Now, and while that may sound somewhat petty, threatening to withdraw his friendship, it's actually a very big deal. I mean, if you paid attention to anything that we've said in this podcast over the years, you'd know that friendship is everything.
Mm-hmm. And the friendship of men in power, like a Gothi, is even more than everything.
You know, there's something wrong with your phrasing there, but the sense is absolutely right. But Asbjorn is powerful, but nothing compared to Thorgir. He's not going to let that bond go, and Thorgir knows this, so he's taking advantage of that.
No, it's actually a great example of how influence works in the social world of the sagas. Right? Thorgir doesn't really have to do much to get what he wants, but he also doesn't command respect and authority the way a king might. Right? There's this nuance that he has to have in wielding his power, right? And that nuance in power in medieval Iceland is something that I find really interesting.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, but you know, now that the Erdekot is out of the bag, if you will, I think that we.
Oh, I won't. That may be the worst pun you've tried yet.
Yeah, well, I think we've done much worse.
Nah, I don't think so. Now, Erdekot's life with Serpa and Gest is over. Although we should be clear that they are rewarded handsomely for their time spent caring for him, and they're very happy in their future life. But now it's time for Urthakot to go on to bigger and better things.
More amazing stuff.
Section 4. Urthakot and Finnbogi. Oh.
Finally, Finnbogi.
Yeah, I know, right? We've been spending so much time on this kid story. I'm betting everybody forgot this is Finnbogi's saga.
It's most definitely Finnbogi's saga, and we're about to find out why we've been following Urthakot for so long.
Well, we're not quite done with Urthakot yet.
No.
He's living with Thorgerd and Asbjorn now, dressed really nicely, continuing to grow into an impressive kid.
And he's 12 now, right?
Right, which, again, in human years is like 24.
Do you want to cover another feat of strength really quickly before we jump?
Only if it's really quickly. How fast can you do it?
How's this? One day there's a 3-year-old bull, and it's giving the servant women all kinds of trouble. Now, they can't milk the cows because they're so afraid of it, and Urthakot is called to help them, and he does.
Well, but of course not without some more snarky behavior from Urthakot. He won't help them unless they beg and praise him.
True, he does. That's true, but I was trying to be quick.
By conveniently leaving out the negatives.
Quiet. Now, so Urthakot stands in front of the bull and catches it by the horns as it charges. And with one horn in each hand, Urthakot then wrestles the bull for a long time in saga terminology, and then tears up the grass and the ground all around. In the end, Urthakot then uses all of his strength and turns the bull over so suddenly that he breaks its neck.
Now, everyone considers that an extraordinary feat, and it actually is, unlike carrying a fish. I don't know too many 12-year-olds who could snap the neck of a bull.
Well, I mean, that's pretty impressive, but more importantly, did I do that quick enough?
Well, it might be a record for us, so congratulations.
There you go. Now, okay, let's move on to Finnbogi.
Right. So, Urthakot has really keen eyesight.
Now, that is a weird way to start this part. Or just open with that.
Hey, that's the way we're starting it. Urthakot has a habit of staying outside all night long. No one knows what he's doing, but one night he comes in looking for his father, Asbjorn.
Now, it's nice to see these two finally interacting.
Yeah, and I wouldn't describe it as a particularly warm relationship to this point.
No, but, they're communicating, and that's an important first step for these guys.
Yeah, now he's looking for Asbjorn because he believes that he's seen a fire far out on the horizon of the sea. He knows that sometimes people in trouble at sea set a fire on the ship as a beacon to anyone who can see it. Now, Urthakot wants to have a boat so he can go and investigate before it's too late.
And here we get another feat of strength. Urthakot is given a boat and 3 farmhands, and at first the farmhands row, but they go so slowly and they quickly get tired from the effort. And when Urthakot takes the oars, the ship then moves faster than when the 3 men were working together, and Urthakot is able to row for much longer, so it doesn't take them too long to get there.
Right, but the ship turns out to be much further away than any of them had imagined.
Well, don't forget that they pass a dead whale on the way.
Well, but Urthakot won't let them stop to collect it.
No.
He is focused on that fire in the distance. And when they get there, they find a trading vessel on the verge of sinking. Which apparently has been on the verge of sinking for a week. While Urthakot's been looking out off the coast. He boards the ship with the farmhands and finds dead bodies scattered all about.
But they then find one guy who's alive, and his name is, wait for it,
Finnbogi.
That's right. We've got a Finnbogi in Finnbogi Saga at long last.
Oh, glorious thing.
Well, it's worth noting at this point that Finnbogi's not a fan of Urthakot's name. When he hears it, he says, that's a strange name.
Well, it is, but I think it's really strange that Finnbogi would choose this moment to express his displeasure with his rescuer's name.
Well, it's hardly an important detail. Until it is, anyways. And this detail is actually kind of important.
Right. Now, it turns out that there actually are other men alive on the ship. 9 other men. And a lot of trade goods. So Urthakot saves everything and everyone that he can.
What a nice guy. He's such a hero.
In this case, yes, he is. But even his heroism can't save the other men in the end. They do make it back to shore, but in a few days, they all die, presumably from their injuries.
It's a sad result for them, although I will gladly accept those deaths for our body count.
Well, that's cold, Andy.
Oh, come on. You know that body counts have to come from somewhere, and at least Finnbogi survived. That's important.
Right, it is. Now, the saga describes him as a very good-looking man, big and strong. There are apparently no ugly people in this saga, apart from Serbian.
Right, they're hideous, but everyone else is great.
But he is another good-looking man, He had excellent weapons, a sword and a shield, a helmet, a coat of mail, and of course as the captain of the ship, all the remaining goods from the trading vessel now belonged to him. So things are looking up for old Finnbogi.
Well, for now. I mean, he spends the winter selling his goods and hanging out with Urthakot, and the two become good friends in quite a short time.
Right. Now in the spring, Finnbogi and Urthakot set out to collect some of the debts owed for the goods they've sold that winter. As they travel, Finnbogi turns pale and becomes too weak to ride any further. Oh. He asks Urthakot to stop so they can rest.
Uh-oh. This doesn't sound good for Finnbogi.
No, it isn't. Finnbogi believes that he's going to die on the spot.
Wait a minute. Now, we just met this guy. We haven't even been talking about him for 5 minutes. This is Finnbogi's saga. He can't die here.
Well, he believes he's going to die.
All right.
So he lays down, and Urthakot puts Finnbogi's head in his lap.
Oh, I like that part. It's just a nice touch. Very tender. Good job for the writer.
And Finnbogi says that he is grateful for Urthakot's help and for his friendship. That he wishes he could reward him properly.
Wait.
He then gives Urthakot the weapons that his father, Bard, had passed down to him.
This sounds like a death speech. This isn't good.
He also gives Urthakot all the remaining goods from the trading vessel.
That's actually very kind of him.
And lastly...
Oh, this is worse than I thought.
Lastly, he says, I also want to give you my name.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm so tired of saying Urthakot. Finnbogi's such a cool name. Maybe we should have started right here.
Really? It sounds to me like a Scandinavian with a nose cold. He's got Finnbogies.
No, I like Finnbogi. I think it's cool. But now you've ruined it.
Now, Finnbogi also said, now this is Finnbogi, the one laying on the ground, with his dying breath, says that he believes that Urthakot's name, now Finnbogi, will be famous for as long as the world is inhabited. It will be a great honor, he says. If such an excellent man as he expects Urthakot to be will carry the name of Finnbogi.
It's all very touching. Until you look at it another way, where Finnbogi's basically using his final moment on Earth to once again tell Urthakot how much he hates his name. I mean, he just can't let this go, can he?
Well, in fairness, it's a terrible name.
Yeah.
But he also gets to attach himself to Urthakot's legacy this way by giving him the name Finnbogi. So it's a smart move.
Yeah, you're right. And we're talking about him now, aren't we? So I guess I'll say well done, Finnbogi. Your prophecy has come true.
There you go. It did indeed.
Finnbogi is dead.
Long live Finnbogi. Section 5. Finnbogi goes to Norway. Now, we should be clear that we're not talking about the dead Finnbogi anymore.
Nope.
Right? We're not floating his corpse back to Norway. This is just that, like every good Icelandic youth worth his salt, Finnbogi decides to make a name for himself by traveling to Norway.
And Finnbogi's 16 now, by the way.
Right, which means in human years he's 32. Is that how this works? I think I get it now.
Now, I don't think that formula continues throughout his growth and development period, but I would wager that he does look far more like a man than a teen at this stage.
Unfortunately for Finnbogi, the trading vessel that he's traveling on gets caught in bad weather as they approach Norway, and they crash on a rocky shore.
Don't they always?
Oh, yes. Now, as you might expect, everyone on the ship dies, except for one man.
Finnbogi.
How'd you know?
Oh. Well, it must be something about that name. Now, the ship crashed on the shore of a steep cliff, which is kind of bad for Finnbogi. But, after surviving this shipwreck, he has to now figure out a way to climb a large cliff.
Oh, but this is Finnbogi. This isn't a big deal for him.
And it isn't, actually. But when he gets to the top of the cliff, the winter storm that kind of wrecked the ship, it kicks up again, and his clothes, which are already wet, freeze solid. So now he's got to stumble around in a strange land in frozen clothes looking for shelter somewhere.
Right, but he's able to stagger up to the home of a farmer named Bard.
And now, is this Bard Finnbogi's father?
No, it's just a farmer named Bard.
Good. Yeah, because that would have been too much of a coincidence for me. I don't think I would have appreciated that.
Right. Because everything else in the saga so far has been so believable.
Sure, but there's not much to say about this Bard. We could say that he's a nice guy, and he has a warm house and a relatively good disposition.
And he gets along well with Finnbogi.
He does.
He even helps organize a group to salvage all the goods from the shipwreck for Finnbogi.
Now, that shipwreck, I think, actually turned out to be quite fortunate for Finnbogi. I mean, he gets to keep all of those goods for himself now.
Suspiciously fortunate, one might almost say.
No.
Are we suggesting that there might be some skullduggery afoot?
No, I am not.
Okay.
Not my Finnbogi.
All right.
He wouldn't do that.
Well, your young Finnbogi is off to a good start in Norway, even though he missed his mark of landing anywhere near Earl Haakon's court. But he'll get there eventually.
He will, and I think this is actually fortunate for him because it gives him time to make a name for himself in Norway.
Well, what better way to make a name for yourself than by fighting a giant bear?
A giant bear, you say? Why? It worked for Grettir. I don't see why it can't work for Finnbogi.
Yeah, no, there are actually a lot of parallels with Grettir's saga at this point.
Well, the only difference is that Finnbogi doesn't end up burning the house down when he comes to town, and he doesn't make any enemies at his host house.
Of course he doesn't. Because Finnbogi is perfect in every way.
All right. Now, so over the winter, Bard's territory is harassed by a very aggressive bear. Things get so bad that Bard then calls a regional assembly, and they decide to outlaw this bear, placing a high price on its head.
Now, this is a part of the saga that needs a bit of scholarly attention.
Yeah.
How often do we see a bear, or, any animal, get a sentence of outlawry?
No, it is pretty remarkable. I don't recall seeing anything like this, and I don't know that we'll see it again. I mean, we have seen them outlaw the undead, so I guess maybe a bear isn't too much of a stretch.
Right, well, and the point is to get the district fired up about going out to hunt down this bear.
Why wouldn't they already be fired up? It's killing their livestock and threatening them so that it's not safe to go outside, so I don't understand why they aren't doing something. Were they just sitting back waiting for nature to take its course and this bear to die of old age?
Well, whatever they're doing, the outlawry seems to have very little effect. Oddly enough, the bear does not decide to cut and run. Instead, it becomes even more vicious.
I better become a Varangian guard.
Right. I'd hate for anyone to dislike me.
Right.
The bear starts killing livestock now, along with any people who get in his way.
Now, we have heard this story once before, haven't we? What Bard needs is a hero. Someone with superhuman strength who can come in and teach this monster a lesson.
We don't need another hero. Sorry, what?
He needs a hero.
But Beowulf and Grettir are busy, so that's not going to happen.
Well, I'm pretty sure Beowulf's quite dead by this time, so it doesn't really matter. But Bard probably should just look around the table and ask the superhuman fella that he's got right there.
Well, instead, Bard does plan a large hunting party to go kill the bear.
No,
but they need to prepare their weapons first and get a good night's rest. Which is fine, because Finnbogi is on the job.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird scene, but it is reminiscent of Grettir's battle with the bear. In this case, Finnbogi waits until everyone is asleep, and then he creeps out of the house. And then he walks backwards towards the bear's territory.
I'm sorry, you said he walks backwards.
I did, he walks backwards.
Why is he walking backwards?
I can't really say, but I suspect that he doesn't want it to look like he left the house and came back. So he's very humble, you see. He's not eager to boast and take credit for killing the bear, assuming that he achieves this goal.
Right, sure. Yeah, Finnbogi's been known for his humility so far. This is the same guy who made the serving women sing his praises before he was willing to kill a bull for them, right?
No, not really. But, I like to think that the saga starts developing a sense of humility for Finnbogi around this time. I mean, he doesn't really mouth off all that much, or brag, but he is bold for the rest of the saga.
Well, I mean, he'd have to be to approach a bear by himself. Backwards.
Yeah, well, I think he turns around when he gets to the bear.
I hope so.
But, now that I've said all that, I think he does boast quite a bit, and he is a little bit of a braggart, but whatever. Anyway, so he does find this bear.
Yeah, no, I believe it's laying over the body of a sheep, sucking the blood out.
Right, sucking the blood out. It's a lovely scene, and what happens next is even more fascinating. Finnbogi calls out to the bear, "Hey, bear, stand up and attack me."
Is that your Finnbogi voice?
It is right now. I'm sure it'll change at some point. The bear then sits up and looks him over, but then flops back down and continues to suck on this sheep. Finnbogi surmises that the bear doesn't want to fight him because he has armor on, so he throws off his helmet and shield, and then he taunts the bear again. And again the bear sits up and then flops back down, not ready to fight. And finally, Finnbogi says, "I understand. You want to fight on equal terms." And with that, he sounds exactly like a 16-year-old, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And with that, he throws away his sword and then taunts the bear again, saying, "You're a coward if you refuse to fight me."
And the bear grabs the sword and says, "Ha ha!"
No, that's not what happens.
No, the bear doesn't like being taunted.
No, and he does, however, I think, like that Finnbogi is now defenseless.
Right. Well, now the bear stands up and shows its anger. He leaps at Finnbogi and raises a paw to strike.
But Finnbogi's ready, and he closes the distance as the bear strikes, running in underneath the bear.
Now the two are going to start fighting for a long time, trampling the ground, uprooting everything in their path. In the end, Finnbogi manages to force the bear onto its back, and then he breaks its spine.
Didn't we just do something similar to this with the bull?
Yeah, we did. I think you're going to notice, as we said earlier, there's a lot of repetition in this saga, particularly in terms of how Finnbogi kills things.
That is certainly true for the first part of the saga, but I think once he gets back to Iceland later on, we'll see him slip into more of a standard saga feuding narrative mode.
Right. No, I think that's a pretty regular commentary about this saga, that it's almost got two different sort of tonal registers in its two halves.
Yeah.
Right now, it's really more in these folktale beginnings of Finnbogi's life that we see this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess that's appropriate. I mean, it's not unlike Vatnsdæla Saga in that regard, actually, if you think about it. That one started off with a lot of folk motifs and then transitioned into a traditional saga once they got to Iceland. So it's not surprising that we're getting these kinds of stories in Finnbogi, if he is, as it seems to be, a folk hero for the Flateyjardal region.
Sure. You can imagine oral stories being passed around about him. Or if he's not a folk hero, oral stories of this kind are then merged with Finnbogi's life when it came time to invent a past for the guy who got such a bad reputation in Vatnsdæla Saga.
And I think you'll find that his kinsman Berg actually comes off worse there, but generally speaking, I agree with you.
Okay, so the bear is dead. Long live the bear. Finnbogi then does something really strange. He takes the carcass and rearranges it over the sheep in the pose that he found it in. Then he sneaks back to Bard's farm, presumably walking forwards this time.
In the same footsteps, probably.
Right, and crawls into bed without disturbing anyone.
And then in the morning, Bard wakes up and gathers everyone, and he asks Finnbogi if he's coming on the bear hunt with them, and Finnbogi says he's happy to join in.
Which is just so odd to me. I mean, I don't see the motivation or the payoff here, although, once again, we're dealing with a folkloric motif, right? We see virtually the same thing in Hrolf's Saga Kraka, after Baldvar Bjarki kills a flying troll monster.
Good call. Well, I mean, I imagine that for Finnbogi, the discovery of the bear by this group of men must be really fun to watch. I mean, they're all afraid as they slowly approach this bear when they spot it, but then they creep close enough and they realize this is a dead bear. And then they look closer and they see no visible wounds and they're all like, what the hell happened here?
It doesn't really take long for them to figure out what happened, though. And Bard is convinced that Finnbogi must have been the one to kill the bear.
Sure, but, being humble, Finnbogi doesn't claim the victory. He just says, "You can believe whatever you wish."
His voice has changed substantially. Is that supposed to be humble? Is that what you think is going on here? I can't help but feel like Finnbogi is sort of subtly putting one of his feet in one of the footprints in the snow as he says this. Like, well, think whatever you want.
I don't know. I do have a feeling there's a bit of smugness in a little bit of everything that Finnbogi does.
Yeah, you think? When Bard asks how he did it, Finnbogi says, "It doesn't matter. Neither you nor your son will be able to do anything like it."
Oh.
Now, if that's not smug, I don't know what smug is.
That's smug, but it's also true, so.
And I don't think Finnbogi rejects the bounty on the bear's head either.
No.
So I think we can drop this narrative of him being humble. Like any good saga figure, he's calculating and a little bit full of himself.
But he is also very capable and not too difficult to get along with. I mean, he's got all the ability of Grettir, which I think is intentional on the part of the saga author, but he's also quite good-natured.
Yeah, like I said before, he's a little too perfect.
Oh, I'm sorry, he can't be more flawed for you.
Section 6. Finnbogi and Alf.
Alf, huh?
What can I say? So Finnbogi's life with Bard is pretty happy, but his ultimate goal is still to visit the court of Earl Håkon.
And an opportunity is going to present itself one day when Finnbogi sees a large man rowing along the shore. This man turns out to be Alf, the brother-in-law of Earl Håkon himself, on his way up to Finnmark to collect taxes for the Earl.
And don't forget his nickname. He's Alf Afturkemba, the swept-back hair.
Oh, well, there's a nice nickname for you. I'm going to wait until the judgment section to tell you what I think about that nickname.
Oh, I think I know what you think, and I think I agree. Business in the front, party in the back.
That's not what I'm thinking, but all right.
So their conversation is kind of fascinating to me because neither one of them is outright rude to the other, but there's something underneath the surface that I think is meant to make us uncomfortable.
Oh, they're definitely sizing each other up throughout the whole thing. I mean, Finnbogi has a bit of a reputation for killing that bear now, and Alf wants to know how he did it.
And Finnbogi gives what has become his signature smug reply, saying, "That doesn't matter to you because you won't do any killings that way."
Oh.
I mean, come on, Finnbogi, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, he is. But, I mean, his arrogance is revealed then to be hereditary. It turns out that Alf knows Finnbogi's father, Asbjorn, and Alf says, "Oh, then it's not surprising if you behave arrogantly."
Wait, why does Alf speak with the same voice you use for Finnbogi?
It's not exactly the same. It's slightly different.
Now, there's another veiled threat in the conversation as well that I don't quite understand. Besides Alf doing an impression of Finnbogi, apparently. When Alf asks Finnbogi how old he is, Finnbogi says 17. Then Alf says, "Don't increase your size and strength as much in the next 17 years as you have up till now." I assume he's meant to be cheeky here, but Finnbogi apparently takes offense. He says, "That will be as it turns out to be, even though you're likely to be dead before the time is up."
Oof.
That's a serious ratcheting up of hostilities.
It sure is.
Now, what's up with that? How's that called for?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely uncalled for, but, you know, somehow Alf in this whole conversation comes off the slimier. Finnbogi comes off better. I don't know why.
No, he does. Part of that is that after Alf leaves to collect the taxes, Finnbogi learns from Bard that Alf is the worst kind of man and extremely treacherous. He's the kind of guy that takes advantage of his position in court as Earl Håkon's brother-in-law. So it's understandable if he comes across as a bit more slimy than the arrogant Finnbogi. And this is often, I think, something that we see with sort of the Norwegian courtier, where he's kind of a figure in sagas. And Alf kind of occupies that position. Absolutely. Sort of corrupt, mid-level official.
Yeah. Something Icelanders wouldn't be too keen on.
Right.
Now, because of that, I prefer to think that Finnbogi maybe sensed that and was simply showing Alf that he's not one to be pushed around.
Right, it's possible. There's just not enough in the evidence in the conversation either way. But whatever happens, Alf has agreed to stop and pick up Finnbogi on his way back from Finnmark with the taxes. And after that, he'll take Finnbogi to Earl Håkon and introduce the two of them properly.
See, it sounds like things are going to work out anyways,
but
you'd only believe that if you were naive. I mean, when a saga tells you that someone is dangerous and treacherous and unjust, you better believe that guy's trouble.
And Alf is.
Yeah.
When he returns to pick up Finnbogi, his boat is full of money from Finnmark. And as Finnbogi steps into the boat, he notices that Finnbogi is much heavier than he should be. His eyes turn to Finnbogi's leather sack, which Alf guesses is full of silver.
And this is where the trouble really starts. But Alf is subtle, or at least he tries to be subtle about it.
Yeah, he's, for a given value of subtle. It's hard to be comfortable around this guy, particularly when he pulls the boat up to a small island in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Now, Alf claims at this point that it's his tradition to always stop at this island and spend the night.
It's a little suspicious. I mean, Alf's home island of Sandoy is very close. I mean, they could get there with a couple strokes of the oars, but he insists on stopping at this out-of-the-way island anyways.
Yeah, Alf suggests they leave all the goods in the boat and carry it up into a large cave above the beach. Once they arrive in the cave, Alf goes to fetch water and Finnbogi builds a fire. And while he's building the fire, he hears a whizzing sound above him.
Now, as fast as he can, he flings himself across to the other side of the fire.
Right. And as one would suspect, Alf has come to this island with the hope of killing our hero. Alf rises up and lunges after Finnbogi.
But Finnbogi moves in and runs under Alf's guard, closing the distance with the opponent. He seems to be very good at that, actually.
Right. And so that means that Alf is about to learn exactly how Finnbogi killed that bear.
Poor bastard. He really is. But it takes a while because Alf is so strong. And as they fight, the fire finally flares up. And in the glow of this fire, Finnbogi notices a large rock that's near the back of the cave with quite a sharp edge on top.
And anybody who's ever seen, any action movie knows what's going to happen next.
Right.
Alf sees it as well and moves to bring Finnbogi over toward this sharp rock.
And realizing what Alf intends, Finnbogi allows Alf to move him toward the rock, which might seem counterintuitive if you're not superhuman like Finnbogi. And when they reach the rock, Finnbogi suddenly breaks Alf's hold, jumps up, and with a powerful jerk, pulls Alf's breastbone across the sharp rock.
And the saga says that Alf died there, without honor as he deserved.
And that, my friend, is a brilliant place for us to end part 1 of our summary of the Saga of Finnbogi the Mighty.
Right. Now we know that Finnbogi is eager to meet Earl Håkon and make a name for himself in Norway.
But he has just killed the Earl's brother-in-law.
Ooh, this is almost like a cliffhanger. How will the Earl respond to this? Is Finnbogi headed down Grettir's path of chaos and destruction?
Or will our golden boy find a way to clear his name and rise up into the pantheon of saga greats?
Yeah, probably not. But there's only one way to find out. Tune in next time when we attempt to conclude Finnbogi's saga.
I like that you said attempt. Yeah, I think that we are unlikely to finish next time unless we short shrift a lot of the good stuff. We got a lot of wrestling matches with other things like other bears and magical black creatures. And there's a whole feud with Jokul Ingimundarsson of Vatnsdæla. What are we going to do?
I want to finish this before summer. We need to get a move on.
Yeah, fine. We'll see what we can do.
All right. It gives me more time to prep our next saga.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget that we will be posting a special saga brief in honor of the 4th season of Vikings pretty soon.
And that's right. This time out, we're going to be looking at the historical Rollo and the story of the Vikings in Normandy. Should be a good one.
Yeah, I can't imagine we're going to have too much to say about the historical Rollo. Is there anything really out there on him? Not much, right?
Oh, just you wait and see. I've been busy.
Ooh. I'm all aflutter. All right, thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye for now. This is the Saga Brain, my friend.